Not official.
Well, we have 2 vacancies, so it's technically 3, because
2
it only counts
vacancies.
5 seats.
Yeah.
Who's the second?
Lucy and Miranda.
Oh, I didn't know about Miranda.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, she accepted a job in Winston-Salem.
Miranda.
Yeah,
Oh.
moving in, like now, I guess.
Bummer.
End of December is what she
Okay.
said. Yeah, that happened a few weeks ago. I didn't notice that she hadn't copied the whole committee.
What about, do we know who's taking her spot? I mean, I like the idea of having somebody from the Y in the group. Is
This is
there?
an agenda item, but we can go and cover it.
Okay, well, we don't have to if there's.
It was gonna be-
You don't want to spoil it.
Well, we're 3 out of 5, so.
Girl.
How's everyone doing? How is everyone?
We got an application from somebody from the Y that
Oh,
she
good.
had recommended.
Okay,
So,
great.
we still have a second seat open, so I was gonna suggest that we solicit applications, which we have.
Lucy has resigned.
Oh,
And then
She
you guys
got-
can
she accepted
recommend
a
those appointments for
position with,
the official in February.
Okay.
The Great Trails State Coalition.
oh, I know that organization. Okay. Is she moving out of Asheville?
I don't know. And I wasn't even sure what it was. I just saw the flyer that's in the agenda package.
Wow. And is,
We don't know if Gerald's going to be here, so why don't we call the meeting to order?
okay.
And then we'll talk about all this stuff.
Okay, great.
All right, sounds good.
Wow.
So there are a couple of additions to the agenda. Adrian's going to talk about the Great Trails State Coalition, and that's not on the agenda right now, so we should add that maybe under new business. And I think that's all.
There's also an addition to appoint a vice chair, since we've lost that member.
Yeah, I made a note about that, but I saw that you had committee memberships on there, so I figured we would, deal with it. So with the addition of one more item, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I second.
And approval of the minutes of last month's meeting?
A motion to approve.
All right. Moving right along. Let's hear from the public. No public again. And so presentations, I don't know, I didn't see anything about the Healthy Cities in the agenda package.
There isn't anything in there. We have a lady coming to present what that's about on Teams, and so I'm going to set that up right now.
Okay.
She'll be talking to you.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Can we amp the volume up a little bit?
Working on it.
Yeah.
I might just have to bring it to you.
That'd be fine.
That's fine.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How do you do? Yeah, can you see and hear us okay?
I can.
Or at least me, there's.
I'll just come in and say hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
How's everything in Winston?
Wet.
Can you hear me? I just said, how's everything in Winston? You guys doing okay?
It's a little wet and otherwise wonderful.
Yeah, I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, so we probably have the same weather. It's very warm today, but it's expecting the temperature's just a plummet, so. That's the sad thing about being in the Midwest, we get everything. Probably be snowing later this week. Well, listen, thank you guys so much for giving me a few minutes of your time today. My name's Maria, I'm a Partnership Development Manager with National Fitness Campaign. And I'd love to share with you the details around the National Fitness Campaign, Fitness for the Community Wellness and explain our grant funding and how we qualify folks for that. Before I get started, I just need to see if you have any questions before we get into this presentation.
I think we've got better speakers now. Yeah, I've got all sorts of questions that I'll just wait until you have a chance to tell us what it's all about for.
Okay, that sounds good. Now, I don't use Teams a lot, so let me see if I can the sharing option to work here. And we will try to get this thing rolling. Give me 1 second. Let's try the window share, and let me know if you guys start to see some changes take place on this visual. Can you see some happy people on a fitness group?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Well, that's not going to work. Then let me back out of this. Bear with me 1 second. We navigate so many platforms, and this one's not one that I do often, so my apologies there. Let's go back here and try that again. So it says I'm sharing, so let me see if that's going to work. What about now? Are you starting to see anything?
You're sharing the screen that has us on it.
Okay.
So you're getting closer.
Not going to happen. Let's just see ourselves here. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing and try again. So let's start again. Share content. And so that's your screen. Let's see about this presenter mode. Let me try content only in the window and see if this is going to work for us. Are you guys starting to see this?
Yay, good
Yes.
job.
Oh, all right.
If you can make it a little larger, that'd be great.
So you should see it in full screen now. Is that happening?
It's close enough, I guess.
Okay, so happy people on a fitness court with their hands up, right?
Right.
Okay, awesome. Well, this is one of our ribbon cutting ceremonies. When we launched the fitness courting campaign in big communities, we have a big party, and it's a ton of fun. We get a lot of community folks out there and just really celebrate the city bringing this type of campaign to the folks that live there. Everything we do at National Fitness Campaign is really designed to drive health impact in a positive way and to build community engagement. So I'm going to jump through this presentation. There's a lot of info here. I will make sure you get a copy of it if you haven't already seen it. So don't worry about taking too many notes, and we'll have lots of time for questions and answers at the end of this, okay? Now, National Fitness Campaign is brought to you by the folks you see on the screen here. We work with some of the largest healthcare organizations in the country who contribute to our grant fund, which acts as seed money for the campaign. We are really a wellness consulting firm based in San Francisco. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. We have a team across the country that works with cities just like Woodfin to build healthy communities. So we started doing this work over 30 years ago. Back in 1979 was our first fitness court, and those were the wood and metal structures that you might still find around in a few spots. We built a lot of those. And then we did a total revamp of the campaign in 2012, spent about 6 years doing research on urban planning and design, functional fitness, exercise science, and then launched the new campaign in 2018. And we will be welcoming our 500th community next year. So we're excited about that. And everything we do is focused on building happy communities and making fitness free to the public. We really want to get people out of their cars and get them moving. Probably are familiar with some of the statistics around health outcomes in our country. And really, we just have to move. And that's true for every age group, whether you're a teenager and all the way up into our 90s. We've got to keep everyone moving, and that's going to really impact our health overall. So this is a comprehensive community wellness program. It is divided into equal parts infrastructure, which is that fitness court itself, and then services. So we provide a wraparound toolkit of services to really help you plan, fund, and activate the campaign locally. This is the fitness court. It's 38 by 38 feet. So it's about half the size of a tennis court within the playing lines. So it's a compact footprint, and it's all designed around 7 functional fitness zones that lead to a 7-minute full body workout. So you can work out your entire body in 7 minutes. It is progressive in nature, so you will improve over time. There are thousands of different exercises that can be performed on here by adults over the age of 14. So this is just the functional fitness movement, which is intuitive to us as humans, so it's easily scalable to everyone. It's very inclusive. We have ADA accessibility on the court, and we do have folks in wheelchairs that use the court across the country for their workouts. We have programming for everyone between the ages of 14 and 100. We have inactivity problems also with our youth, so providing this type of space and also social space for them to get together, work out, and improve their health outcomes long-term is good for all of us. And likewise, we have great movement for seniors with stability and mobility. We even have some great senior groups that act as ambassadors for the campaign. The Fitness Court app is a part of our services, so that is free to communities to download. And then they can access how to use the Fitness Court in a library of programming that will be based on your own goals and abilities. Now, if you haven't downloaded the app and you get to the court, you can scan the app, the QR code, with your phone, and it will go ahead and download for you. Or you can just look at the wall. We have great instructions on that wall. So if you don't have a phone, it's no problem. So the services that we provide to our partners are really designed to drive long-term health impact and community engagement. We start with helping you find a site based on what we've learned by building out all of these sites across the country in over 40 states. We also help with the design of the fitness court. And to make it turnkey, we do have a national installation network which you can use to install the court. So this thing can be up and running in 3 days once that concrete slab is secured. So ambassador training is one of my favorite parts because we do train your recreation folks as well as others in the community that you help us identify as ambassadors for the campaign. So that could be local fitness enthusiasts, it could be high school students, it could be senior groups, it could be police and fire. We see lots of different groups in the community becoming involved in the ambassador piece of this, which really does drive their ownership of the project, if you will, and they can help each other become more helpful. So we highlight our leaders in each state every year through media, social media, local media, and we do that launch party, which we talked about already. We also keep that app updated with fresh content, so it's not the same stuff all the time. And then we provide impact data to our partners so you can gauge, are we really achieving our goal, which is to create a wellness culture for everyone in the community. So the fitness court design, there are many different ways we can customize this fitness court. You see on the left is the blue and white. That's our NFC color. We love this color. And even within that standard gallery, we have a lot of different designs you can choose from. Now, if you wanted to upgrade the design a little bit, we do have the ability to do that as well. With maybe just a message on the front wall with a wrap, we can do a local artist if that's important to you guys. We work with those artists directly and help them scale the design to the size of this wall, which is really large. It's 32 feet. And we also digitize the art. Every piece of art, whether it's in the blue gallery or in the upgraded gallery, is created on an anti-graffiti laminate wrap. It's a commercial grade laminate, so it's much like you would find on the outside of a commercial aircraft. So meant to hold up and can be cleaned off easily. Everything that we provide from a service perspective to our partners is designed to really have an impact on the health of everyone in the country. We'd love to have one of these within a 10-minute bike ride everywhere so that folks have access to that workout. And not just the fitness court, the social space. We've become so isolated, and so just providing this important type of outdoor space for folks to get together can be really helpful, not just for physical wellness, but also mental health. So that is the overview of the fitness court. Now, before I talk about how we qualify for the grants and the funding, what questions do you have about that fitness court?
What were those dimensions once again, please?
Yeah, it's 38 by 38 feet, so it's about half the size of the tennis court. And that is our standard model. We also have an expanded version of this, which I'll show you in a second, but it's 38 by 76. And it has an additional sport floor on the other side of this wall. It comes out over here, which is just a tile sport floor, so you can do outdoor yoga, Zumba, Pilates, those types of things that we saw folks doing in the park.
Is the floor, oh, sorry, is the floor of the area like a pour-in-place kind of spongy stuff you might see at a children's playground, or what is that?
I think we have a better picture. So you can see, these are actually tiles. So it is a Regapol tile sport floor. And that sits on top of a concrete slab. The slab is 38 by 38. And we like to leave that perimeter so that people have a place to sit their water bottles, lay down a jacket, that type of thing. The court itself is about 32 by 35.
Will you say the name of the flooring material one more time?
Regapol, I think it's R-E-G, or I'm going to spell this wrong. I can send over the information from them if you want. We'll take a look at it. But it's, I think it's U-P-O-L, R-E-G-U-P-O-L. And we send additional tiles when we ship the fitness court, so you've got a few extras in case. I mean, we had one instance where some kids spilled juice on a couple of the tiles, so they were able just to replace those. Those tiles adhere to that concrete slab once it cures. And then the fitness court elements are bolted in place. There are very few moving pieces on here. You can see the only thing that moves are these cables and rings right here. So it's very easily maintained, which our parks folks usually like. So it's just really cleaning off any debris, checking those bolts for tightness a couple of times a year.
Do you know the lifespan of the flooring?
It's a 10-year warranty for those tiles. I mean, now that's the warranty. Will they last longer than that? Possibly. This thing is set to hold up for decades. We make this right outside of Birmingham, Alabama. Everything's made of carbon steel. All of the elements are double powder coated to protect them from the environment. And, you know, we have these on the beach, so they get the salt water. We found them in the mountains in Colorado, upstate New York, at Michigan, all kinds of harsh environments, and they're holding up really well. The wall itself, this big steel wall, is warranted for 25 years.
What installation do you have that's closest to Asheville?
That is a good question. We do have quite a few partners in North Carolina. I would jump out of this thing, but I'm afraid I'll lose my sharing ability. So I will send you a list of partners in North Carolina.
Well, North Carolina is as you know, is a long, narrow state. So Western Tennessee, Southwestern Virginia, Northern South Carolina, those would all be, you know, better than Wilmington, North Carolina, for example.
And so I know there's a Mecklenburg County has a fitness court, which is in the Charlotte area, I believe, so that's a little bit east of you guys. Indian Trail, Kernersville, we've got Wake Forest, Elon University. There's a really big list, which I'll be happy to share with you. And I'll also look at that area that's a little bit close to you that might be out of the state.
Yeah.
For sure. Any more questions about the court?
When you were describing the warranty, you said 10 years. Was that for the floor and the apparatus?
That's for the tile floor itself. The wall is the 25, and then each one of these elements has a varying warranty on it. I think those are between 1 and 3 years on the actual elements that you see there, both of them.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Have any questions?
No.
Any others? All right, so we can move on to the next more important part.
Now let's talk about the grant and the funding, right? That's a big part of the conversation. So we are growing quite rapidly. We hope to have this within a 10-minute bike ride of everyone in the country. And in 2023, we'll be looking for 225 new partners. That sounds like a lot, but if we spread that out over 50 states, we really just have a few grants per state available. These are awarded on a first-come, first-served basis, and they are reviewed by the National Grant Committee, who's looking for the 4 criteria that you see here. So we'll run through these, and then we'll have a chance to go back and kind of talk about each one of those. But healthy living is a priority, and I know from talking with folks last time on the briefing and just the fact that you guys are here today, that it's something that you're working on and probably is a fairly high level of focus for the folks there. So we just want to make sure we've got the stakeholders involved. And everybody's excited about that as we move things forward. Now, the next part of this is about sites. Can we find a site that makes sense? And we did talk about a couple of sites on our briefing call, which were associated with the Greenway. I believe it was Silverline or Riverside Park, which we've looked at and reviewed, and both of those would really make a great location for the fitness sport in the wellness campaign. So we can establish that for sure. You won't have any trouble with that part of the application. The third piece is funding. So for 2023, for the fitness court, and that's everything, that passport for the roof, vaults, everything you need except the concrete, and then the services that we provide to our partners, it's $155,000. Now those grants will be in the amount of $30,000. You can see that blue line right here. So if we were able to get you folks awarded a $30,000 grant, the funding that we would need to ship that fitness court is $125,000. And that is for the blue, the standard blue fitness court. Now, if there were any other art upgrades, we talk about that as well. But there are really three transactions that take place here to get this launched in the community. The first one is the funding for the court, which is $125,000. We do have a concrete slab that has to go in first. Now, typically, folks will handle that in-house with public works, or we can talk to a local concrete company and help them understand the benefits of bringing this to the community and get them to donate the concrete. We've done that quite successfully, and they get a tile on the court. And then the last piece is the installation team. So that's our national partner team flying in and then getting this thing ready in about 3 days. And their funding requirement for next year is $25,000. So basically, we're looking at about $150,000 plus the concrete to get this thing installed and ready to go. Does that all make sense? Mm-hmm. All right, so that's the funding piece. Now, we do see this come together in a lot of ways up there across the country. We've had folks use ARPA funding, CDBG, community development block grants, other types of grants. Typically, communities will budget for it, but even if there's a budget piece for this, we can always backfill with some sponsored conversations if that makes sense for your community. I always tell folks, if you've done some other sponsored campaigns successfully, then we can likely help, backfill this commitment for this campaign. We work with a lot of healthcare organizations, foundations, local businesses, and we do help with that conversation. So we're happy to do presentations, and we've got Leave Behind and all kinds of templates that we use to really help you reach out to folks about it. So just keep that in mind. And then this is that studio version, which I told you about earlier. It is twice the size. It does have that extra outdoor classroom space for Zumba, yoga, stretching, all those things that we saw people doing in the grass. So we gave them a passport for it. But that's 38 by 76, so it's twice the size. And there's a little more funding required with that layout. So additional $35,000, and it also includes an upgraded design gallery. So you would have a different design on the wall that you could choose from and work with our design team on. So just so you know, that's something to keep in the back pocket in the right space. That can be a great thing to bring to the community. That just depends on funding and size and all those good things. We're looking for those applicants. We are in the early application window for our 2023 folks in North Carolina. We will be looking to have the applications for the 2023 grant submitted by the end of February. So we're going to share all this information with you, let you guys talk it through. I'm going to answer all your questions hopefully today. And because we've already looked at the sites, we do have approval to release that non-binding grant application if it makes sense for you folks and if the timing lines up. But I'd like to just stop and see what questions you have about those 4 categories or what else I can, help you work through and think about.
Okay, it says schedule evaluation, call if appropriate. Do I understand that that's already happened? That you have already looked at the site, so, we're on to the next slide, sort of thing?
That's right. Yep, that's exactly right. We
All right.
discussed the sites and our team looked at them. So, yeah, we're in good shape with site. What we really need to establish is, do we have a consensus that this is something that makes sense for the community, and can we work on it together in 2023? Or is it something that would be maybe a little bit later down the road?
Well, I think we'll look forward to reviewing the information that you send and possibly trying to work in a site visit on a in-place court if that's an option for us.
Oh, absolutely. And since I'm jumping out of this, why don't I check that location for you while we're on here, if that's okay, unless you're short on time.
I think we have got a lot on our agenda today and do need to move on. But if you could, get those to us, then we would appreciate it.
I have a question.
Yeah, another question?
Absolutely will.
So you described, well, you mentioned our two river parks. They're along a river which floods. And so it doesn't sound like flooding would be a particular issue or challenge, just wash them off. How does that?
It's a good question, and what we're always told folks is if they're going to sit underwater for a really long time every single year, it's probably not the best
Yep.
situation.
Okay.
If it's a while, it'll be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No questions from me.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This was on the printer, if someone printed it out.
Yes, mine.
Okay. Hands off, it's fine. I heard that.
I was looking for it, so I got it.
Yes, I'm not moving to read it.
How did we come about that presentation, Adrian?
Sherry had been contacted by them or had heard about them, so she reached out to them, and at the last minute, they had requested this webinar, so I thought we're having a meeting next week, so can we set it up for them, so that's what we did.
And Eric, they're talking about $250,000.
Here's 150 plus 30.
Yeah, plus concrete, plus,
Yeah.
I assume that there's an annual maintenance fee or, something that she seemed to allude to, but a lot of money. Given the state that we're in, do we talk about this some more, or do we just take it off the books?
I think that's up to you guys.
I think if you like it on the merits, then Adrian would kind of get to work on, see what funding might be available, what funding partnerships might become available.
Well, one of the things that we are going to get to, we'll sort of jump around a little bit, is I'm thinking Geneva Maney Park,
That was my thought.
which would put it within striking distance of the Greenway, when that's done. And Geneva Maney is kind of orphaned right now. We were looking at something else to do there. There would be ample parking and plenty of room to do it in the existing playground area, and that's not being utilized. So, this, I can see how it, conceivably could fit together if on, additional, a visit or learning more about it, if it still seemed like a thing to do. So that's why I circle back to, could money be done? She talked about, perhaps a sponsorship.
Anything can be done. It's a priority.
Right.
That would be the question.
And I don't think that's a decision for right this second. I think it was just here's an option for
Right.
our parks. We'll get more information on it, and we can continue that conversation.
All right.
Yeah. Because we do have a lot of maintenance to talk about with our other parks. So I feel like it's a little cart before the horse.
Okay, so, communication and marketing, anything to say?
I wish I did. I don't.
Okay, and so let's move, and no project management. So,
Nope.
moving on to Silverline Park building update.
Sorry, my computer froze. So we issued the RFP for demolition for the Silverland Park building last week. If you know of anybody that would be interested in that RFP, please let me know, and I'm glad to share it with them. It's also on our website, so it's out there. We have a site visit scheduled for the 20th for those interested in learning more about the RFP and providing feedback or questions on what's in the RFP. And any addendums from that conversation will be added to the RFP by the 13th, and then January 13th, and then February 13th is the submittal deadline. And we hope to have interviews scheduled by February 21st with the contract awarded by February 27th, with a target date for demolition of the building April 20th. As I said, that's on our website, and I also included it in the Teams folder on the PGAC page.
Adrian, do you have to get, do you try to get 3
Yeah.
bids in?
Yeah.
And then if you only get like 1 or 2 and you're not crazy about them, do you just leave it open and extend dates? Okay.
7 people so far
Oh,
have,
wow, so that's not an issue.
are at least aware of it. So,
Okay.
I'm not sure,
Wow, that's great.
and so they will all be contacting Adrian for a copy of the RFP. As far as the RFP is concerned, one of the things that we've talked about, both at the committee and you and I, is, trying to reclaim some of the materials. And that should be part of a walkthrough and part of the, sort of the verbal stuff that is given to any prospective bidders. We don't have a piece in place yet for how to go about that. But I would like to try to work something out. Therefore, my thought would be, tell the people that are going to do the demolition, that on the assumption that they're not going to be interested in anything that is salvageable, that, we are going to attempt to remove material that can be reused somehow. Therefore, whenever they show up, they tear down whatever's left. And the only thing that I have seen, the only thing that I thought was really usable and that we have had an expressed interest in was the roof. The roof was, the town paid $68,800 or something like that, just a few years ago. So I called Best Buy Metals a couple of weeks ago to get a price on just the value of the metal alone. And it's just a little bit north of $13,000. So that roofing doesn't have near the value that I thought it had. I would have expected a contract for $68,000 to have 20 or 25,000 or more in materials in it. But it's real straightforward. The roof is, so long and so wide, and at current steel prices, it's $3 a running foot. So, that was one thing that I thought that a demolition company might want to try to salvage. I did reach out to, is it Ray Stone? Did you call him?
I did not.
Okay, well,
That's part of the reason I included you on my email.
I called him today and emailed a copy. He's the fellow that has been through the building. He and I went through the building. He's a little bit interested in that. He is very interested in the roof, and he is very interested in removing the 2 buildings from Riverside. And I told him that I thought that something was going to happen towards January about that. So, in any event, back to the RFP, if we had through January, or maybe through the middle of February, whenever the submittals come in, to try to salvage whatever could be salvaged, and then once the bid goes out, any work like that stops. So that if we can put together some sort of volunteer effort to try to reclaim, repurpose materials in there, there's a deadline on, when it can happen by. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's part of the reason we're doing the meeting on December 20th to have some of these conversations, and then when we receive the bids, we can revisit those conversations. So I think we need to wait till that point to decide whether or not we're going to put together volunteers to go in there and take the materials out, because this is referenced in the RFP, that we want the materials salvaged, and their responses should include their thoughts on that. So I think it's best that we wait to go through the process as we've laid it out, since the RFP is already issued. And then we can revisit this conversation about volunteers taking over.
Can you bring the screens back up, please?
Yeah, I needed to.
Because there's potential that someone would place a bid that would do the salvaging
Yes.
for us in theory.
And reduce the cost.
Right, because they'll resell what they can salvage, and it would all be done under their insurance.
That's the thought, that's the first, that's the first, I think, preference.
That would be ideal. It's just that after, a couple of conversations with people that are, kind of do that sort of thing, I'm not holding out any expectations that anything will be salvaged. Just due to labor costs
Right.
and the value of the material.
And that may very well be true, but I don't think now's the time for us to take over and make decisions on how materials are going to be salvaged until we get more response from the bidding community.
That's fine, and I understand that. The only thing that I'm trying to address is the very short window between, when you get the bids in and when you expect the work to be done. Whereas we've got a lot of dead air space right now.
Well, that's just our target date, so if we see that we're going to need to be more proactive about salvaging the materials, we can do that. It doesn't have to be April 20th when that happens. That's just our target.
Okay, well, I've had my say. Okay, and future amenity plans.
I'm sorry, bear with me just a second. I won't like using Teams.
I don't either.
Your dogs are very cute, by the way. I smile every time that screen goes up.
All right, I don't know how I got on the wrong slide deck, but I'm gonna be there in just a second. Okay. I still think this is the wrong slide, but I'm gonna go with it. So I had a discussion with the floodplain administrator with the Buncombe County, who enforces our ordinance about restrooms at the park specifically, because I feel like that's most important at this moment. But I've also have an update on the pickleball courts. So for the restrooms, he said it may be best to do a separate structure from, I introduced him the 2-story observation deck with the restroom idea. It's doable, but he thought it might be better to have the restrooms as a separate facility. He noted that a building under 120 square feet wouldn't require a permit. So if we wanted to do like a prefab or the Portland loo, That may be the best way to go. He said the observation deck was doable, the piers would have to be flood-proofed, and it would likely be made from steel, which is agreeable to floodplain regulation. So all that was good. I think it's all doable, so I have that information. For the pickleball, you got a question?
Well, a building under 120 square feet is just 10 by 12,
Yeah.
so.
It's just, I was sharing everything he shared with me, so I know that's probably not feasible. But he was very much, he liked the prefab, small building type of restroom better than anything else.
Are we allowed to do 2 10 by 12s?
I was thinking the same thing.
Well, I think you need a permit at that point. But I think we're gonna need a permit anyway, so that's not that big of a deal.
Okay,
We lost
so,
you up here.
I mean,
Yeah, I know,
Okay.
internal issues.
what we have talked about for over a year now is the need for restrooms in the park. I mean, that is the one thing that is absolutely a given. So, at what point do we make a decision and say, or do we? Or, do you just punt it to the, straight to the board? I mean, if it's gonna be, 2 separate buildings, or if it's gonna be a building for the restrooms, that's gonna be someplace that is not gonna be within the footprint of the building that's gonna be torn down, there's no reason to delay. I mean, that's a decision that could be made, given those parameters, that it's not in the way and it's gonna be, a second structure.
I mean, I guess I'm looking at for your recommendation for what you would like to see. I can gather the materials and the information about it, bring it back to you. You can make the recommendation to council, that's what we want to do. But I think we need more information before we go to council with, we need restrooms at Silverline. I'd like to have more of a plan on what that's going to look like.
So you'd like for us to make a recommendation for the specific type of restroom, not just that we need restrooms?
Well, I guess I'm looking for, do you want a 2-story observation deck with the restroom in that building? Would you rather, what are your thoughts on the standalone restroom, prefab type building, the Portland Loo? And then I can bring together the quotes on some of this stuff and we can talk about it more.
I think the observation deck is a great idea just for pickleball and general watching kids or watching the river. It's not up at the river, it's set back. I like the idea of there being a higher level that's not obstructing.
Then we wait
In
though,
any way.
right? Because that'll be incorporated into the design of the pickleball courts. Does it need to be, or can that, I mean, we gotta wait until after the building comes down?
So we have about $250,000 in the budget for Silverline today, which
I'm sorry, how much?
250,
Okay.
which will include the building demolition. So it really depends on what that comes in at and what we're left with at that point.
What's your best guesstimate on the demo? Like, I would have no idea.
A year ago, they said $150,000.
Well, that's a big chunk of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the architects, and they said $150,000 plus or minus 50%, I think, was what was thrown in there. So, I mean, it's not going to be $20,000 or $25,000.
That's astonishing.
So is that for, is that for 2022, the 250,000, and is there more for 2023?
There is possible, it's something we can discuss during the budget talks, and so that's kind of why I'm having this conversation now, so I can say, here's our recommendation, here's how much it's gonna cost.
And the Portland Loo is attached to this existing sewer, or is it like a porta potty that somehow gets, I can't remember. Do we know? How those-
I think it's tapped in to the sewer line.
I believe so too.
So they would need to go basically on the bathroom footprint that is there right now,
Well,
or?
I don't know that that's true. And feasibility is something that
Right.
we've not done that yet.
Okay.
And what we do know is that the existing water lines, the sewer lines are not ideal. And maybe on the water side, maybe inadequate. I know I did hear Ronnie talking about that at one time.
Would it be possible to have two sets, like maybe they're single stall, but like where the porta potties are now, because that's mostly where families will reside, and then on the other side of the park is where the pickleball players will be. I mean, it's not that long of a haul to walk from the pickleball courts over there, or vice versa, but could you do two stalls and then two stalls, or maybe if the budget allows more stalls at the pickleball court?
It's not the walk, it's the lines.
Oh, it's the lines.
We'd be
okay.
we'd be cutting through
Got it.
asphalt,
Right.
Wetlands,
So,
getting sewer drainage.
We can't
and-
put anything where the porta potties are.
Well, I don't know, I'm just suggesting that,
Okay.
because I have no idea where the sewer
Okay.
lines actually run.
Okay.
But that is going to be, I mean, if they had to run from the location of the building to get over there,
That's a
then
waste of money.
it would be digging up all the stuff that we just put down.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Okay.
But,
So do you want me to come up with some options with some rough quotes on what the cost is gonna be? We can revisit this at the next meeting and go from there.
we can't make a decision any other way. I mean, we have to know,
Well, I wanted to know what your thoughts on the design of what the restrooms were gonna look like where.
this does not look like a prefab building, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Made out of
It's
cinder block?
Actually, the floodplain administrator sent me this picture. He really likes this building.
Yeah, I think it's a nice building.
That looks like what's
that
over at
block?
Carrier.
I'm not sure where this is, but I don't think it's local.
Okay, but for us to make a recommendation, we would have to know, that it's feasible, where it could be placed, how much it would be, how much it would cost. I mean, we can't, we need, at least have to have some rough figures.
I understand. So you want me to bring back rough figures for a prefab building and the Portland Loo and the two-story observation deck and go from there? Or are you interested in a prefab building? I guess, yes or no, then I can get information.
I don't,
Yeah.
I personally don't care. I mean, we need to have it, but we don't know anything about,
Right.
where it might be. The sewer line, for example, could tie in down at the other end of the park. I mean, it's the most feasible place to do it, down,
Right, and then we could avoid
closer to the
running,
road.
if the piping is bad, we could avoid having to run new pipe by putting it in a different position.
Yeah. So we just, we need to understand what can be done. The only reason that I stuck the toilets in the, in that drawing that I did was because, we needed toilets and we were talking about a building, but
And that's where, are they there in the building, in that kind of far?
right now,
South
right now, the sewer lines run essentially, as near as I can tell, along the outside edges of the building, more so closer to the railroad, with a couple of branch lines. Now, I'm just looking at where the toilets are, but there are toilets on, on the
Riverside?
on the riverside
Side.
and but most of them seem to be along the railroad side of the
Okay.
building. So I'm assuming that there's a branch line someplace in there. But also, if we want to preserve the concrete deck for pickleball, then we're not going to want to go in and, and tear up a bunch of it to get into the sewer lines.
Right.
We're going to want to abandon those lines
Right.
and tap in someplace else. So we need to know,
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into this decision.
yeah.
Yeah.
As I noted, and the reason I brought this up today was to let you know my conversation with the floodplain administrator, and what was option and what wasn't. And he would rather see the restrooms outside of that two-story observation deck. And so that's why we moved on to a standalone facility or the Portland Lou. And I think what it sounds like is, I need to work on some options for those two things and come back to you next.
Yeah,
next
Yes.
because
month.
it could happen faster also if it weren't tied up with
Right.
the development of, or the tearing down and development of
Yeah,
that new space.
exactly.
Yeah, and for an observation deck and pickleball courts, that kind of cleans up that whole, design process, I mean,
Sure.
it makes everything
Yeah,
easier.
and I like the aesthetics of these.
I think they're
this
fine.
Unit, yeah.
Okay. So that's what I'm gonna do. So we'll talk about it next month, more information about what the options are.
And that more information should include some location information.
I'll do my best.
Presumably Equinox had to locate all those underground lines prior to construction, so they would know where
That's true.
the sewer tap would be. That should already be incorporated into their drawings. It shouldn't take very much to pull that information out.
Okay, moving on to pickleball. I did talk to French Broad Paving, who's done courts for the city of Asheville and specializes in this kind of thing. They gave me a rough estimate of just the resurfacing and the striping for $40,000.
For 5 courts?
That doesn't include fencing or lighting or any of that stuff, but it would include the pad, basically. So that was good to know.
Okay, and while on the money, I've also reached out to Summer Green at Reems Creek Golf Court. They put in 4 pickleball courts. They look to be reasonably new, so I asked for who their contractor was and their cost estimate, and any other information that they care to share. So I'll forward that to you once I hear from her.
Okay, and then Chris put me in touch with the city of Asheville staff that had been working on their pickleball courts. So I got some insight from them that I thought was worth sharing. They also use French Broad Paving for their resurfacing, but all their courts are shared, so it's pickleball and tennis, which we all know can be a problem. So they brought up lighting considerations for one, and the neighborhood being right across the street, and whether or not, the park was even gonna be open at night. So those were things I thought were worth thinking about. And then considering whether or not our courts were gonna be recreational courts versus competitive courts, because the competitive courts are gonna involve more and require the lighting and require the late hours. So it's just something to think about.
Definitely.
Okay, the difference in competitive courts, the surface itself, is a matter of a few feet. For a competitive court, they want it, 5 feet longer and 3 feet wider, or, some
Beyond the actual court stripes, like the stripes are the same, but
The stripes are the same, they just want a little bit more offset. And so, at least the drawing that I did was for the competitive court size.
Okay.
And so that means that fits on, all of that fits on the footprint of the concrete, of the
Well,
pad
just
slab.
Contemplating the purpose of Silverline Park, is that gonna be more of a community park, or is it gonna be our competition park? So I think that's some conversations we might wanna have when we're making the decision of what the pickleball courts will be.
My thinking is that if it's a competitive quality court, then we have the means of attracting, tournaments and stuff like that. That would be sort of high, it could be income source, it could be, it's not that much more. As far as lighting is concerned, beyond the cost, the people that live across the street, or across the street and the highway, Woodfin has a dark skies ordinance, so any lighting that's installed should light the courts, but not anything else. So, having lighting at night shouldn't be an issue. And noise, we're far enough away that shouldn't be an issue.
It shouldn't be, but I think the competitive the competitive side has certain requirements on the lighting, and it has to be certain lumens, and it has to be face a certain direction. So it's just something to think about.
It does, the poles have to be 20 feet tall, and, you know, it's,
If you think competition's where the direction we need to head, that's fine. I just want to know, you know, what your thoughts are on recreational versus competitive. Sounds like you're for competitive.
I'm for competitive because I think it provides a greater opportunity for Woodfin to attract things beyond people that are coming into play occasionally. I think it puts the park into a much higher category of potential utilization.
You guys have any thoughts?
I mean, go ahead.
I wonder, is there enough parking at that park to accommodate a competition? I don't even know what that really means, what a pickleball competition means, but,
Do you remember how many?
Isn't there the spillover, there's 40 some parking spaces, as I recall, more than that?
I think it's closer to 70.
But wasn't there some spillover parking that was, the town leased or?
we use the Republic parking next door for the event, for the opening, the grand opening. That was like where the workers parked and we were getting there after they were leaving, and so that's not.
Parking marked yet on the street side either, so on the perimeter of this.
And then there's that vacant, or it's not vacant, I think Young used to do bus training down there, but maybe Silverline owns it now. There's a big empty lot next door that, should we go that route, could be in the once a year, once every 2 year chance that there is a competition, perhaps could be leveraged for parking, but.
It'll be a green light.
Mm-hmm.
No, they're 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I can look at the doors on that sign.
I think that's what the sign said.
So the Pickleball Association makes a manual of what the court sizes need to be in competitive versus recreational.
Oh, that's in the team's file, isn't it?
And, City of Asheville shared the first chapter with me, which is.
Yeah,
That's what's there.
the manual is like $60 or something like that, and I didn't think that we needed to buy that, but in the team's folders, in the contact information, towards the bottom are two links to very good summaries of both building a new court, and one is rehabbing an underutilized court. And it spells out the.
First chapter of that manual too, so.
Okay, so the one that I did is not the official, I mean, those links are not to the official, but it represents that, and it, I think it does a good job of summarizing. The official manual gets into the grade of asphalt that you need and the 1% pitch per, you know, I mean, it gets into a lot of technical details.
Where did you say it?
It's in the pickleball folder in a file called pickleball information, or contacts and information, I think, and it's at the very bottom of that page.
I would think too, if we go with competition courts, that we might want to have some budget for a consultant, pickleball consultant, to ensure that we're compliant, so that when tournament time comes around, there aren't any.
There is a contact name in there that is for the fellow that is the head of the NCAA Pickleball Association, and he is all about helping people do it right.
Oh, that's great, that's great. And is there any, like, is there a minimum amount of courts you need to put in to be a host for tournaments? Do we?
I don't know.
That would be interesting to know too, like, are we gonna meet the minimum requirements to be legit to host a tournament? How many courts are we envisioning?
I think 5 are fitting.
I've actually attended the national tournament down in Naples, Florida, and there was so many courts. kind of blew my mind. I mean, it's nationals, but,
That's cool.
yeah, yeah. I
The only
applied
game
that
that I've
sponsored
seen
it.
was on that TV show.
Oh, the Colbert Show? Yeah, Will Ferrell was great, I watched some of that.
Okay, that's good feedback. Anything else?
Lots to think about there.
You ready to move to the next item?
Yeah.
Ooh, fun.
So at the last meeting, we talked about the trip Eric took to Prague and what he learned from that and things we need to be thinking about for future of the wave and maintenance. And so we realized that we might want an event management task force. We talked about that last time. So the goals of the task force would be to examine issues of owning and operating the wave. Issues like parking adequacy, food and outfitting, marketing, site and event preparation. And this task force would be comprised of certain stakeholders through, the community, including paddlers, event managers, local government experts, and others. So the action items of this task force we discussed last time: to identify the issues, to identify owners and operators, event organizers of similar event venues, so we could learn pointers on what to do and what not to do. Develop an interview script to solicit uniform information from these people. Conduct the interviews, collate the data, and then deliver those recommendations on what we should be doing with the wave once it's constructed, to staff and to PGAC. So the timeline that we've identified for creation of this task force is we'd like to solicit task force members between now and January, identify those people at the January meeting, and assemble the task force in February. The task force can then prepare the script and the questionnaire for the other entities and conduct those interviews by summer and prepare the recommendations by fall. So I'm asking you guys to help us identify who needs to be on that task force. And so these are the overall areas that we'd like to be represented on that task force. And I did have a list of potential members.
I've got it right here. Not that that helps you, but if you want it, you're welcome to, or we can share this.
And Eric, I don't know if you want to chime in since you kind of helped put this together or not.
Those are some people that I know and some names that I know that have those roles. There may be different roles that aren't identified here that may be important that, in my mind, I didn't think of. So we can build on this, and I don't think every spot has to be filled, but I think these are if we have this composition, in my mind, we can answer the other questions, or at least address the other questions and issues.
Were you guys able to review this list that we had, Eric had put together?
I didn't, but I've thought about it. I thought about it, independently of this. What size would you like the task force to be? How many people do you envision trying to get together and work on this?
8 to 10? 8 to 10?
Okay. Then, my thought would be, right now, we try to lock in the size of the task force, use the list that you've proposed, put some names beside it, which has already begun. I see Miranda's is going to have to come off, but somebody else will have to go back on. Met Rowan Stewart. You can talk about that a little bit. You did at the last meeting, too.
Yeah, she's the UNCA Outdoor Programs Director who works with the event down in Columbus, Georgia.
Gotcha.
So she would be
It's on the national
good
committee.
one. And she
national
said she
board.
was interested in,
Let's
talking.
have her right now.
Yeah.
Let's ink her in.
How
So
about I
what's,
just,
how's the
I have a
best way to do
recommendation.
this? Should we, this is on the team's page.
Sure.
Should we solicit feedback from you guys between now and January, and then we can make that final determination in January? That's our timeline anyway. Or do you want us to just tell you?
Well, I mean, what are we waiting on? You know, I think we could talk about it, you know, attach some names to it now. If there is, I think it would not be inappropriate to get the group, and if they feel that they need somebody with a certain expertise that is not on the board, they might know someone that would never occur to us, to reach out and say, okay, look, we've got a maximum size that we would like to work with of 8 to 10. We've got 6 of you all together. You know, this is your charge.
So go with the names that are here now, is what you're saying?
I think we should talk about them a little bit, but yeah, I would say yes.
Yep, and I have 2 additional questions. Are you looking for us to continue to do the outreach? And if so, can we map out what the commitment looks like? Because that's going to be one of the first question people ask, like, what kind of time are we talking here?
When you say continue to do the outreach, what do you mean?
Or like Anne's spoken with this woman at UNCA, Rowan, like, do you want us to just supply the names to you? Or if we have the connections, do you want us to make the calls?
I think the task force will make the call, so I want you to identify. Well, you can continue to do it if it's easy for you, but I don't want you to take on more work than you need to, so you can pass those along or talk to them yourself.
I think the invitation needs to come from the town.
Right. Like, I would be happy to reach out to John Grace. I gotta just track down his phone number, and he and Shane Benedict are friends, so I know I can track it down. He checks multiple boxes on here, so he'd be someone like, I wouldn't mind having just an initial, hey, I'm involved with Woodfin, I think you'd be a really great fit, can I make an introduction?
I think that's exactly why I was kind of hesitant to go ahead and say these people need to be on it, because you may know somebody
Yeah.
that I don't.
Right.
And you can let me know who that person is between now and January, and then I can reach out to them.
Okay.
Officially,
Right,
but I want to make sure we cover all our bases, and
Yeah.
people know people, so.
right.
I still don't have a clear understanding when you want that to happen.
Before the January meeting.
So now.
now,
So
yeah.
between now and the January meeting.
And basically, when we say, hey, would you be open to learning more, then you'll talk about like what the commitments, the expectations, all that?
Yes, yes.
Do you have an idea in your mind what expectations look like from this group? Just out of curiosity, like,
Not that I've formed that I can on the spot right now,
No
but
problem.
I will have something by the time
Okay.
somebody needs it.
Probably not more frequently than this.
it will parallel this group in a sense?
Even, maybe not even monthly.
Okay.
It won't be super time consuming. I can't imagine it.
I'm gonna volunteer myself. I know my name's on there, but I would like to help with this. I think I would enjoy it.
Okay?
You'll be good at it, so.
Well, thanks. Appreciate
We're
that.
eating that one too.
Thanks. I'm so excited for 2023 for this project to start happening. So excited.
I think we should be mindful of not loading too many PGAC members
Yeah, I don't think.
on this. Well, we had Miranda,
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to rush through it, so. 'cause I
or
knew-
risk manager, I don't know Brad Stein,
Right.
but, you know,
Yeah.
So-
at this point, I say, let's reach out to whoever.
Yeah, okay.
And the reason that I say this is that, you know, time seems to go awfully quickly. So if we wait until January, then in fact, it's actually February or March, you know, when we only meet once a month, it's easy to lose a month or 2 months to, you know, waiting to make a decision.
I still think it's gonna be January before the decision's made, because the holidays are right now, so I don't think, that's why I'm saying January. I just think, in my mind, that timeline makes sense, and it'll happen in January.
Okay.
Because that's the timeline we set for ourselves, so.
Okay, well, I don't know anybody, so
I've got,
I can't recommend, I know you.
I just met with a woman today who would be amazing. She's like this, she's an educator and she's a phenomenal raft guide. She would be, and she lives here in Asheville now. She would be great too. She's so well connected.
I can talk to the French Broad staff too.
That's a
French Broad
big
River
plus,
Academy.
being connected is.
Definitely.
Is a big, I think, a big plus, particularly as it moves forward.
I'd also, as part of this task force, I can liaison back and forth, like I can, if that's helpful, Adrian, bring like the information from those meetings and deliver it at this meeting, because someone's gonna need to be the conduit that
Yes.
makes sure that we are sharing information.
Agreed. I like that.
Okay. Will that group have to have minutes and have it be as structured from a governmental standpoint as this group?
It's just a task force.
Is it appointed by council? Yes.
So it would be appointed by council. But it would just be organized with, as you would do this as a staff liaison.
Can we,
I'll double check.
we'll double check.
Okay, can I vote for simple? If it's a way to keep it simple and not have to take
Oh, yeah.
all kinds, that would be amazing.
Would the task force in any way be advising the council?
No, they'd be advising this board.
Yeah, but that,
We'll get back to it.
yeah.
Okay, but it would be very helpful if they could meet informally in groups of larger than, a majority without having to call special meetings.
exactly.
However it gets structured, it would be, I think, very helpful to them if they could meet at a bar and not have to come up.
I mean, they can do that now, but if.
No, I mean, and not have to have special meetings.
Yeah, if they have to follow the same rules y'all do, then they'll have to call special meetings.
That's why we need to know what we need to call them so that they don't.
Yeah, we'll get,
All right.
we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Anything else on that?
So just, can you go back to that timeline? So if I'm pitching this to a French Broad teacher, or just French Broad River Academy in general, can you identify someone from school who might be interested in this? Would it be, you're kind of committing to be on this group through October, or is it through, July? Because they're part of the interviews, or is like the people on the task force conducting the interviews, or are the interviews up here interviewing the people that are on the task force?
I think this, correct me if I'm misunderstanding, but I think it would be an ongoing thing. This is just the first task of that group. Because they're gonna be making recommendations on events as we move forward. So it's kind of like an as-needed thing.
In looking at the Bend, Oregon website for their water park, there is a lot of stuff there. I mean, a lot of policies, procedures. The Bend, Oregon has, I forget what they call their thing, but, I mean, it's certainly implied, if not stated, that there has to be kind of a book about how to do some of this stuff. What the town's responsibilities are, what, if somebody is coming in to run an event, what their, it's kind of, and a lot of that can be borrowed, but still.
What I'm gonna do, because this is related to just this first action item. There's more than one. So I'll spend the next couple weeks putting together like a marketing brochure of what, for lack of a better word,
Right.
for what it's gonna look like. And
So
I'll
we're all
send that-
telling this people the same thing
Yeah.
about what they're getting into.
I'll work on that.
Okay.
That sounds good. I linked to the, or shared, the Golden, Colorado Whitewater Park is run by their Parks and Rec, so that's another one to look at. And they're really buttoned up in that. I've been to that park, it's beautiful. A lot of heavy use. All right, so we're gonna wait before we reach out to anyone? Is that what?
Yeah, I'll get you something.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully, yeah, I'm not gonna make promises, but as soon as I can.
Okay, and
Okay.
a big part of what you're asking for, which I think is reasonable, is what sort of time commitment, not only in terms of
Right.
months, but,
Right.
you know, we would expect that this committee would, or this group would be meeting so many times a month, once a month or twice a month, and for, you know, a meeting that might last 2 hours, or, I mean, some sort of,
Right, that would be helpful.
some sort of understanding about.
Yes, I'll put all that in when I send out.
Thank you.
Anything
Yeah,
else?
moving on.
All right, so the prioritization recommendations, thanks for filling out the spreadsheet. So I took all those responses and I kind of put them together, and I wanted to spend this time talking about responsibilities of staff versus you guys and kind of what the expectations are on moving forward with what we're going to do with these recommendations. So for staff, I'm going to handle the Riverside and the Silver Lawn Park, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. The community center, I don't know how much we're really going to do with the community center today, because we're not sure what's going to happen with it in the future, and I'd like to know more information before we go. Spending a lot of time and effort fixing up those facilities. And then there was outstanding items on the list, the doggy bag stations and the multilingual signs. Staff will handle those as well. So, and I'll come back to you with reports on what we're doing there. But the subcommittees, I'd like to split Geneva Maney and Roy Pope into the subcommittees to spend some time and energy on, and I'll get to that in a minute too. So these are the items that were identified for Riverside and Silverline, and I took any that were marked as a high priority or had more than one response, kind of highlighted. So you can see Riverside and Silverline, everything was important, it seemed. So, you know, the scraping of the walkways, we can handle that in-house. I've already talked to Johnny about taking care of that. I removed the advertising signs, so that's kind of been moved on. Flashing light at the intersection, yes, that's, you know, something that we're thinking about. So I'll take care of Riverside. For Silverline, we did a walkthrough with Equinox with the Public Works Department, and so they're aware of what maintenance needs to happen with the grills and the landscaping and all that kind of stuff. So that's taken care of. We are working on the sign structure for the depot. Hopefully that'll be placed sooner than later. The one problem area that I've been focused on the last couple of months is that area in between the pavilion and the playground that remains muddy, and I know that they planted some grass seed and some of it grew, but it's still not perfect. So I talked to Equinox about what we could do in that site, because it's a swell for stormwater runoff that runs to the pipe that's on the other end by the sidewalk. So they weren't interested in, they didn't think rocks was a good idea, so that idea is gone. What they did recommend was fox sedge, which I believe is little like bulbs you can kind of just plant in the ground, and you don't have to wait for them to grow. With concrete pavers at both entrances of the pavilion. And I have a rough estimate of what that would cost from them, which is about $6,000. I don't know if that's exactly how much it'll end up being, but I'm working on that plan. And I have worked with finance on making sure we have budget for that plan. So we're moving forward with that, and so staff's handling that issue.
I still think people are gonna walk all over it, but I guess if there are little paths, then maybe they'd be more encouraged to walk on this.
I walk all over the fox edge.
I think they'll walk all over.
Yeah, I think so too, and they do too, which is why they recommended the fox edge.
Okay.
Because I think it'll be, when it grows too, I think it looks kind of scary, so I don't know if people will really be interested in, I don't know.
If the pavers are 4 feet wide, it's a pretty good size.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I see that.
So I'll keep you posted on what happens there.
Okay, thanks for doing that.
The community center, there is the issue of the runoff from neighboring properties. We can look at that. So that's still on my radar. The outstanding issues of doggy bag stations and the multilingual signs, I haven't really done a whole lot with that, but it's again on my radar. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was a doggy bag station conversation previously that I wasn't aware of. And I don't know, I'll need to look back at the notes.
It was just looking at like a, kind of a DIY PVC tube type thing where people can dump their, it's capped on both ends, but it has a hole in the front and a hole at the bottom. So if you have old grocery bags or bread bags or whatever, you can bring them to the park and dump them in the top. And then people who want to use one, then they can pull it out of the bottom.
And they just throw it in the trash.
And then they just throw it in the trash.
Okay.
So maybe they're placed, it's on a post, put it by the trash can.
Was that at a certain park or just in general?
That idea, I've seen them around in different places, I don't remember where I've seen them, but someone here also mentioned, else brought it up, that idea, because it's low maintenance. It doesn't require you to buy rolls of doggy bags that only fit a certain kind of contraption and that kind of thing.
Okay, I'll work on that.
But yeah, then the expectation is there's not like one dump spot for doo-doo. It goes into any trash can, which I don't care, but maybe the trash people do. I don't know. I don't know how bad that situation would be. If it's bagged, it's bagged.
Okay. All right, I'll look into that. The one area I haven't mentioned so far is the Little Free Libraries. That's still up in the air on how. I don't know if anybody has any updates on partnerships with you do.
Well, Walt and I both independently contacted the Boy Scouts, but we've written and talked with the same people independently, but haven't heard anything back officially, right? Is that something?
Well, actually, I do have a contact name for Troop 91, the fellow that is working with the Eagles. He's not the scoutmaster, but he is, the fellow that's working with the Eagles on their projects. And I overlooked it in the last email that I received last Friday, but I do have his name and email address, and they apparently have a number of people that are, number of fellows that are working on their Eagle.
Great.
And the way that I proposed it in an email was, and my thoughts, pending how you all want to do it, was that the Eagle project would be, first, the scout comes to the town and works with you all and figures out exactly what you want to do. Because I've heard sort of different, feelings about them. Then does an inventory and repair of all the ones, including making sure that they're properly mapped on Google Maps. There's a couple that are not. And then if any need to be relocated, or if anything else needs to be done, then he would take care of that. So that at the end of the project, the town would have been able to decide. So, I mean, the advantage of this as a project is that the scout gets to work on the decision-making process with the town about what needs to be done, the repair, which is hands-on, and the placement of them, and then posting them both on Google Maps and on the Little Free Libraries website provides a computer thing. So, I think that it has a lot of components of what would make a good project, and it's really not an onerous amount of work. But at the end of that, the Little Free Libraries would be where and how the town wants them, and they would be in good repair, and they would be, searchable by the public.
Okay. So you're still waiting on confirmation of that?
I will follow up.
Okay.
I'll follow up with the guy. Is it okay with you all if I proceed?
Yes.
On that basis, so that would mean I would put the scout, if they identify one, I would put him in touch with you, and And then you all would, you and he or they would carry it from there.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, so that's the little free libraries. So.
I'd like to circle back to a couple of things while we're at it. You mentioned the sign at, in Silverline. Is that going to be a multilingual sign? You know, the two seem to go together. You know, we're talking about them as if they're separate, but in fact, you know, that's a sign that is not in existence yet. And we've already suggested that all the signs should be multilingual.
So is the recommendation that every sign in the park be multilingual? 'Cause this is
All
more like
all the
a-
informational ones, yeah.
This is like a historical background sign, so I don't know the answer to that question. There's already a fitted area for the sign to be on, so I don't know how much room is there.
Front and
But
back,
I could definitely look into it.
front and back. I mean, what I heard previously, in part from Shannon, was that in dealing with some of the, you know, granting organizations, they wanted to see more inclusiveness, and that this was one of the ways that we, sort of a low-hanging fruit thing that we could do, is by, you know, putting multilingual signs out.
I'll see if that's an option.
And to me, that would apply to all of the informational signs as we move forward in Riverside, or anything that wants to talk about the wetlands, or, you know, anything, the historical background or whatever, that it be like that.
Okay. Anything else?
No, we're still gonna talk about Maney and Roy Pope, so.
So this is a task for the subcommittees, project management and the fixed communications. I realize we're short-staffed though, so I put this together before that happened.
We're almost eviscerated.
So, anyway, I just want each subcommittee, is there a full subcommittee, or is everybody one person?
We're communications,
Your communications?
yeah. And so is Chris.
We haven't lost Chris, right?
No, he just couldn't make it to today.
Well, I prefer to talk about Maney myself, just because I live close to there, and I
Okay.
am more like tuned into what's going on at that park. So if I were to choose one, that would be mine, but that's not the assignment. But I'm,
Well, we can change the
yeah,
assignment.
I figured.
Maybe we could just do, you can do Maney, you can do Roy Pope, and then we can talk to Chris and Gerald about picking one or the other.
Okay.
So I'm just looking for alternatives, so, you know, we talked about Geneva Maney and how underutilized it is, and if we should just start over again, or what alternatives there are for that property in that park. Look for quotes for the big ticket items. This is kind of in planning for next fiscal year, so I can be ready to discuss that with the commissioners when we start talking budget, which would be around March. And then hopefully you'd be ready to let us know where you are anyway by the February meeting on your research and what you've identified.
So for example, an alternative might be that fitness pad.
And something for Roy Pope might be adding soccer goals to the field below the playground so that it could be used as a soccer field. It's
Yeah, but I think there you're running into the same issue about talking about the community center, because, you know, this area right around here is under consideration as a complete, you know, revamp of town administration. And admittedly, soccer goals are not expensive. I mean, I wouldn't think, not in the grand scheme of things. But, you know, if we're taking the community center off the table because of that, then is this off the table?
Well, this park surely isn't
Yeah, but you're talking about the field down there, and
down below the park,
if they develop all of this area
Gotcha.
into,
a municipal center or
Pardon?
something.
pardon,
To like a municipal center.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Then that field potentially have a building. Gotcha.
I don't know that, let me follow up on that too, because I don't know that this entire property is gonna be, if this is the site that's chosen, I don't know that it's gonna be the same as community center site as far as the whole municipal complex. It may be simply in addition to this building. So Roy Pope has not been on the list of things, or the field behind us. But let me get back to you on that.
But maybe a suggestion then for Roy Pope could be to get rid of all the mulch and put a pour-in-place surface down so that there isn't the maintenance of
Yes.
the mulch as ongoing issue. I mean, I'm happy to talk about that too, Coral. I mean, I'm interested in both. I just happen to like have Mamie on the mind because I drive by it every day.
Yeah. It feels a little overwhelming to me, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie, like, I don't even know where to start with that. I guess where I go is like talking to people, what do they want? I mean, there's the maintenance stuff that we can revisit, but also, like, I guess I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm
Well, so
sorry.
there's Geneva Maney, so there was a spreadsheet that we just.
Yeah, okay, I remember that,
Geneva
yeah.
Maney, there's the list of things, and
Uh-huh.
I highlighted, again, those that were marked as priority, high priority, or that had more than one response.
Uh-huh.
So those, to me, were the most important items that needed to be addressed. So you could start there with what you guys have already identified as issues at Roy Pope.
And start getting some estimates on what some of that stuff would
So here's
cost.
Roy Pope, and so this list is on the Teams page.
Mm-hmm.
The photos are there too. Those steps have been, fixed, right?
The plastic ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's been done. So you can start here, and just get quotes for what needs to be fixed.
So like when you say getting quotes, like call a fence company, update like call a, I mean, I, sorry to sound so naive here. So replace shade structure cover, for example, like maybe send a photo to a playground company and be like, hey, do you have any idea what this might cost?
If you, most of them knows what those are, so if you say that you need a shade structure, they'll know what you're talking about.
Okay.
You're kind of becoming an extension of staff, so that we can kind of divvy this up and then.
Yeah, okay.
Come back together and discuss.
Yep.
What our
And
priorities are.
cool. I'm happy to give you the names of some player companies I've used in the past.
Okay, thank you.
So Roy Pope is a little bit different than Geneva Maney, because we're talking about repurposing Geneva Maney, and Roy Pope not necessarily. So you might just want to focus on what's already been identified.
That's where I'll start. Yeah, sounds great.
Is that clear as mud, or?
Yeah, clear as mud, thanks.
No, but it's, what I'm hearing is that you're saying that the committee, someone should call and represent themselves as being on an advisory committee to the town and soliciting bids for a specific piece of equipment that would then be, passed on to you.
Is it soliciting bids or is
Okay.
it just getting a ballpark price at this point?
Which,
So that you can build out potential
Okay.
budgets?
Yes.
You talked about the year beginning July first.
I'm talking about prep for next fiscal year when we would solicit bids. if we
Yeah,
have one.
okay.
Which is July 1, 2023.
Rough estimates.
so what about Geneva Maney? I mean, we've got a whole list of stuff on there. My sense is that the park as it is right now just doesn't work. I mean, just, there's no point in spending, any substantial amount of money to try to fix the stuff
Right,
that's there.
that was my thought. on it,
Because-
And that's
Yeah.
my notes. It was like, I don't know if we should do any of this, because it might need to just be
And that may
buildings.
be what you come back with
Yeah.
and say, I'm just looking for your recommendations, and then we can talk about it as a committee. And, you know, and may come up with some other alternatives for what could be there instead.
Okay, I mean, the fact of the matter is that, you know, this meeting is the only time that we have where we can all really talk about this. So, you know, it's one thing to say, well, you know, get together and come back later on. But, you know, this meeting is our opportunity to hash out some of these ideas instead of just, you know,
Right.
talk about it and come back, because on some of these particularly.
I'm just giving you the chance to prepare to talk about it, so we can talk about, we're not gonna solve all of those problems today. We can gather information and come back and have more of an educated
Yeah.
conversation around what those alternatives look like next meeting.
Well, I like the idea of something like the fitness campaign situation, with a potential addition of something for younger children. So like if I have kids and I want to go exercise, I want to know that they can like swing on the swings. I know swings take up a lot of space. That's an unreasonable thing to put there. But something like that where it kind of could go for any number of ages. Like any number of ages could go there and not, one of them not just be sitting on the bench while the other person does their thing. So have some sort of elements that would be suitable for under 14. Because she was pretty clear.
I like
We do
the fact
14 and up.
that, I like the fact that it said 14 and up,
Uh-huh.
because
Right.
we've identified that
Right, there's a need.
we
for
don't
that.
have anything
Right,
that falls into that category.
yeah.
Do you think that if there was something else there that it would be utilized? It's because of the state of the equipment as it is now, which is why it's not utilized?
I would, if I had a toddler, I wouldn't take them to that park. I mean.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not advertised either. Like,
Right.
it's not, there's no upkeep there. It's not promoted as a park that we put front and center. I think a lot of people in Richmond don't even know it exists.
There's not even a damn sign out on
No.
Riverside Drive. I've talked about that for nearly 2 years now. You know, I mean, what's it take to get just a sign that
But
says
do we
Geneva
want to
Made
put a
It Park?
sign out? At this point, probably not.
You know, if you don't know it's there,
Yeah, right,
I mean,
right.
there's nothing.
No, totally understand.
Okay.
In full transparency, like, I want to help as much as I can, and I will totally take this on, so I don't want it to come across like I'm running from this project. It feels a little out of my comfort zone, like I'm a PR person. Like, I feel like I'm shouldering some responsibility for making this, not decisions, but suggestions on how the town should enhance their parks, and it feels like a lot to me.
Okay.
I feel like I'm really out of my comfort zone. Like, there should be studies, there should be conversations with the users of the park. And I know we do surveys, but I just feel like it's, at the end of the day, maybe it's a consultant who works with park development, parks and rec people, I don't know, on best usage, or what what communities are doing to advance their park systems. I don't know, it just feels a little beyond
I honestly
me.
feel like maybe it's not been presented well, but it's really just an effort to take care of deferred maintenance of the parks that we
Okay.
have that has not been done in certain areas.
Uh-huh,
Because we do have the 2 big park projects going on right now that are kind of
Yeah.
taking.
okay, I'm good with that.
So I'm not trying to recreate the wheel. I'm just trying to maintain what was already there.
You had put develop alternatives as the top bullet on the
I was
subcommittees,
thinking
and that,
when I said that. so
that's a
just
little big for me.
stick with it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let me take the conversation in just a little bit, slightly different direction too. And that has to do with the role of the committee versus the role of staff. I think you all know me to be very much hands-on, maybe too much so at times. But nonetheless, that's how I'm accustomed to operating. Last year, Luke said specifically, in relation to a number of these items, he said, I've got it. I'll take care of it. I know the doggy bag station thing, I'll bet I sent him 6 or 8 or more different photos as I was traveling around of what I saw in different parks. And he said, I got this. So from what I heard last year from Luke was, this is staff responsibility, to implement. At the same time, I was talking to Brian, because he was considering the amount of time investment that he had and all of that. And he said, look, I've served on a lot of advisory committees, and I've worked with a lot of advisory committees, both from the staff perspective and as a volunteer. And as a volunteer on a advisory committee, I feel like our responsibility was advise, and then staff does it. So what you're suggesting, us go out and call and, put together stuff like that, is different from the messages that I've received in the past. And I have, as you are well aware, I'm sure, I've, for myself, blown right through some of those. But yet, we're trying to define here the role of, staff and committee, and whether it's the committee's role to, do some of this, or whether it's staff's job to come up with these, here's 4 different proposals, which one do you like the best? Or if you've got another one, do you have it? And sort of that plays into time constraints, that
It does.
everybody but me seems to have.
I appreciate that. I mean, we're all super busy. My other thing too is like when you're calling a contractor, you can talk the talk. I don't talk that language, so I don't want to. I don't want any potential vendor to be like, "Who is this woman? She's representing Woodfin." Whereas your team has the Woodfin email, like you can validate it. I don't want any potential vendor contractor to be like, "Why is this woman wasting my time?" Does that make sense? Like Darby Communications, like what? I just am trying to figure out how to best connect the dots, and I'll find the time to help.
I was under the impression that you guys needed more direction on how you could help, and so this is my answer to that. If this is overwhelming for you and you don't feel like you have time to do it, that's totally fine. I can take it back and do it myself. I just thought this is what you wanted, and so it doesn't sound like it is. And so I'm totally fine mixing the whole thing, and I can get the quotes and do it myself.
I mean, it seems more efficient
It
to
does.
happen in-house.
I agree completely, because it's us taking the information and offloading. And I know you're super swamped, and I know you're
That's
under.
part of it. I'm super swamped too, so the timeline's gonna extend because I'm one person and I'm trying to do this.
Right.
And so, but that's fine. this was me thinking I was giving you what you wanted, but
Yeah.
I'm obviously not. So we don't have to do this.
Well, I do like the idea of coming up with alternatives, like for the Mamie situation, if I'm thinking like blank slate, I do want to go talk to those neighbors, and I do want to like think about the possibilities. I don't know that I want to call a vendor and ask them how much that costs, but I think kind of the big picture idea of, could it be the NFC with this addition, or could it be
Well, then why don't you just
whatever.
forget Roy Poe? Can you work on alternatives for Geneva Mamie between now and then, and you don't need to get details, just ideas?
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to come by the park like on a sunny weekend day and just start talking to people too about like their usage of the park, and just to get a little bit more feedback. That's more in my comfort zone. So I just want to address one other point. I do agree with you. It's been a little quieter, and we have been saying, hey, we're looking for projects. I think it's just trying to figure out like where we draw the line and what's appropriate and makes sense and most efficient and most helpful in the long run. So I can see why from both sides there's been some confusion. And I certainly am here to help. This is why I continue doing this. I enjoy it, and I want to be useful, but I want to use my time in the most practical and smart way. So let me take that on, just starting to solicit some input that I can share.
Sounds good.
I can tell you that from my perspective, as you experienced this afternoon, is wanting to have a lot of bidders on the demolition of the building. I contacted these people one way or another, by phone or by email or by contact list, and said there is an RFP out there and you need to get in touch with you, or I can send you the RFP because I had a copy of it, and that will give your contact information on it. I felt perfectly fine doing that. If I'm talking to somebody then about almost anything else, then I'm very clear to say, I'm on this advisory committee. I'm not part of the town. I mean, I don't have any decision-making authority. I'm just calling for information, and it's within that sphere that I contacted all these, like the guy from the NCAA and all the others. I said, I'm on a committee that's looking into this. So that's easy.
Yeah.
That doesn't put me
Right.
representing the town or,
Right.
Beyond saying, I'm on this committee.
Got it.
It was a helpful discussion, I think. Yeah. I feel better. Thank you.
Anything else on that?
Nope. Not for me.
Other than, we're going to try to come up with some ideas, big picture stuff.
Yeah.
With that in mind, on the Healthy Cities National Fitness Campaign, would you open up a folder on Teams and dump whatever she sends into that? We'll have this information. But, presumably she's going to be sending other stuff. And frankly, if you hadn't have brought that to the table, I would never have heard of it. I don't think. I mean, it's frankly people that are, sort of in the business or that are already in the information loop that are going to hear about it. With something like the, Ann's visit to the Wave, that came about sort of serendipitously. Mm-hmm. But it's fairly easy to, like the guy that I met at Grand Rapids, it's pretty easy on something that's already in place to say, we're doing something similar. Can we connect you with you? As opposed to coming up with something like this out of the blue. I never would have heard about it. I wouldn't have even known where to look. I wouldn't have even thought about it. Whereas they're obviously promoting themselves to people, like towns and other organizations. So that's my way of saying it's easy for me to follow on an idea that somebody else has already had, or something that's already in place. But I'm not a recreation person. I'm not anything that I'm not going to be in the pipeline for.
Right.
These sort of out of the box ideas that might be great. I mean, on the surface, this seemed like a great idea. I don't know about the money side of it, but it seemed like Geneva Maney, for example, is going to be close to the, relatively close to the Greenway. It's, could tie in really well with Woodfin's, new look, new place.
Yeah. It's a neat concept.
It is, for sure.
Okay, this has been on the agenda for a couple months now, so I just wanted to give an update on where we were on this. We are looking at a couple grant opportunities for some feasibility studies. So there's a planning grant through the French Broad MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, for a feasibility study. And we are gonna ask for, funding for a study for the Greenway connection from Woodfin to Weaverville. So that grant application is due by December 19th. There's a draft, we'll be good with that. Then there's a paved trails grant through DOT. We're looking at that for a feasibility study for the walkability of Riverside Drive corridor.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a big deal.
And
That
we're
would be
partnering with the
amazing.
MPO on that application, so they're helping us get that done. That's due by January 9th, so should be good there. And then we were made aware of an opportunity coming up in January for a comprehensive bike ped plan for the whole town. So we're gonna go after that funding as well when the application comes available.
That's great.
You know, my thought would be all of those trump fixing the, you know, the things in Roy Pope Park in the wintertime, if it's a matter of a time commitment thing.
Right, in terms of
I
like
mean,
your time, like
these-
this is a big
yeah,
deal,
yeah,
yeah.
these
Yeah,
are-
all of those are
Yeah,
amazing.
would be,
Well, that's why I was asking you to do it, so.
I mean, I'm giddy at the thought of sidewalks on Riverside.
Yeah, I know, it's a really,
Because I'm one of those people that cut down and walk the train tracks to get into Riverside. I know I'm not supposed to do that.
also with the caution light down on Riverside Drive, that's something that in one guise or another has been coming up before the town board for 6 or 8 or 10 years on a fairly regular basis. And whoever is bringing it, it's been different people that brought it. And they come here and the town says, well, you know, that's NCDOT, you got to talk to them. And they'll go talk to them, and NCDOT says, well, we can't talk to you, we've got to talk to somebody from the town. So this is something that has gone back and forth, and somebody, you know, obviously doesn't have very much interest in it. But it was on the agenda 2 meetings ago, do you remember, Brian? Somebody was, yeah, somebody was here saying, you know, somebody can get killed down there, is that what it's going to take?
Yeah, I do remember that conversation, but I can't remember what.
They know it's Riverwalk, the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Might have been.
Well, I mean, it's,
They just dropped down the embankment too to get into the French Broad River Park area and to get on the trails over there.
okay, so all of that sounds good.
So the NC General Assembly has designated 2023 the NC Year of the Trail. So there's some goals that go along with this initiative that they have listed. There's a website you can go to that gives all this information, greattrailsnc.com. So they want to inspire people of all ages to try trails, demonstrate the importance of trails to elected officials, and they're trying to cover all 100 counties, North Carolina, with these goals. Boost recreation tourism, promote safe and responsible use of trails, and advance diversity and inclusion. As part of this initiative, they created the Great Trails State Coalition, which is what Lucy is going to be chairing. So that's a group of various nonprofits, government agencies, and businesses across the state. So they're soliciting membership now. They have information on how to contact the state senator to support the funding ideas that they have. They have recommendations on establishing a Great Trails State Fund and launching a Trails Caucus in 2023. They've also created a toolkit for how you can get your community more involved with trails, development of trails. On their website, they're at the bottom, greattrailsstatecoalition.org, so I'd recommend you look into both of these and learn more about what that initiative's about.
And didn't you put up a resolution in support of, was that in support of this on the team's folders?
There is a resolution, I don't remember putting it on the Teams folder there, maybe I did.
I just read it.
I think it was, I saw it this afternoon too.
I still need to talk to administration about taking that to the council, but that's one of the things that this coalition's asking us to do, is adopt that resolution.
Well, I read through the resolution. I didn't, first off, I don't know of any place around Woodfin that looks like that, so I'm not sure exactly how they define trails. We sort of
This
have
is
sidewalks and greenways.
This is my picture, so that's.
Okay. So, I mean, it depends on, how Woodfin would qualify. But, and I didn't think that resolution was drafted particularly, for Woodfin. It would be much more than doing a find and replace the name of the city. But I certainly think that this is very much, the board adopting a resolution in support of this concept is very much in line with us making applications for bikeways and pedestrian ways and, and all, it all seems to tie together. And so I would certainly be supportive of encouraging the board to draft an appropriately worded resolution. And I think it would be a nice boost for Lucy too, to start off with, having gotten us on board.
I know she was talking about taking it to the Asheville City Council, so I'll follow up with her and see where she is on that too. That would probably be helpful. I just wanted to update you really quick on the Riverside Park Waste Pro site buildings that we had talked about, demolition for. That's still on our radar, but we're not planning on moving forward with that in a huge hurry. So I'll come back to you next month and hopefully have a recommendation for a resolution to take to town council at that point. So that's all I have on that. I just wanted to
Tell them about the heater being stolen.
We filed a police report.
What?
We filed a police report. It hadn't been pawned, so.
Insurance claim?
I don't know.
There was a massive furnace in that building.
Oh,
A
really?
massive one. I mean, it took 2 to 4 guys, a high lifter to get it down.
Oh, no.
I mean, it was.
There was obviously some value to it, huh?
Yeah, well, the thing was, incidentally, I just got in touch with Adrian and said, Johnny should go over and look at that. They might need it over at the maintenance building.
Somebody had been.
He went over to look and said, yeah, it's gone.
Oh, wow.
Did you want to update them about the meeting with Mountain True?
Yeah, I had a meeting, just briefly, I had a meeting with Chris Joyelle from Mountain True because they are interested in trying to pursue a office site in conjunction with some sort of commercial operation at the building or building site in Riverside Park. I mean, in Silverline Park. And I told him that the RFP for demolition had already, been listed. That there was not a great deal of enthusiasm, at least at our committee, for a commercial operation down there, but that we didn't want to leave any stone unturned in terms of finding out, what they might be willing to do, but that it would not include the building as it was, and that we had planned on at least probably more than just tentatively, putting pickleball courts down there. And he said, well, he was this high school pickleball champion back in the 80s or however old he was, 70s, and hadn't played since, so that pickleball could still have a role in that. I told him that I felt like the planning timeline was sort of, mid-January-ish for him to come back with a proposal, mid to late January. And he said he would take it to Mountain True, that they had people that they could quickly mobilize to put together a proposal, that he understood the construction of the building and, and all of that. So I don't personally expect much to come out of it. I don't think he does either. but he had contacted me a month or 2 months before that. That was the first time we'd had a chance to get together.
So are you saying that there's a chance that we might not demolish it? Like if it comes back
No.
decent enough?
No, the town, the RFP has already been gone out
Yeah.
now. That could be recalled, and there's a provision in the RFP to not do any of that. But the building as it stands right now, I don't think is feasible for what they want.
Okay.
And he understands, the limitations of the building as best I could convey them to him. Floodplain, type of construction, height issues, and all of that. But he said he would, try to come back with something. So my guess, what he's talking about is that they want a home. Mountain True has been renting. They, apparently Julie Mayfield, is being sort of drawn in other directions now. And so maybe part of her legacy would be getting them in, a little more permanent circumstances with enough space. Apparently they're crowded where they are now. And that they've seen that Chris's personal experience and in general, that nonprofits just do not do well in real estate standalone. It's funding, maintenance issues, people donating to that sort of thing. And so they wanted to incorporate some sort of commercial person or entity to help carry the freight on their rent or their payments. So
maybe they'll revisit with Derek over at French Broad Outfitters. 'Cause he's the only one that's really
he's the only one, and he
expressed
didn't.
any interest in
Right.
that building.
So,
So would Woodfin still own it and they would pay for the renovations? And they would lease?
all of that's up in the air. When you say it, in my mind, it's a whole new something or other. It's not a matter of,
It's still flat and then start from scratch?
yeah. I mean, that building, the way it is right now, as was indicated by the architectural feasibility things, even cutting it down. Now, the feasibility studies that we had last year were for the whole building. Even still, by the time you cut it down, cut holes in a 10-foot cinder block wall and you're just driving up a lot of costs for relatively minimal gain, as opposed to just tearing it down and then, setting some girders up and
Right.
starting at
Okay.
okay, so it would probably be cheaper
Yeah,
to rebuild than to rehab.
okay,
And that's kind of reinforced in the information that we've gotten so far.
okay.
But whatever it is, it's going to be their proposal. They will come back with some kind of proposal. And I just laid out sort of where we stood right now.
Thank you.
We've already talked about the fact that we're missing 2 people. We have 2 vacancies on the committee, Lucy and Miranda. And so we have that advertised for application. If you know of anybody, send them our way. Hopefully we can get those filled pretty soon. But we also need to appoint a vice chair because Lucy was the vice chair. So that was action item for today.
Ooh.
Well, it's not me.
What does that mean? Like, I know Lucy means that
It
you're not
means
here.
chairing the meeting when I'm
In
not
the
here.
event that you're not
Yeah.
there.
So that's been 2 meetings in the last year and a half. Okay, I
Rock,
suggest
paper,
we
scissors.
table this until the next meeting when we've got
When we
more
got more
people
people.
here.
That sounds good.
Thanks, but you have to show up at the next meeting.
Well, that's too bad that Miranda's moved on, although I think I read somewhere that she took a new job, so hopefully that's
In
a,
Winston-Salem.
oh,
So
okay, she
she's-
really
she's
physically is moving.
Moving out
Okay.
down, yeah.
Well, good for her. I hope that's a good move for them.
Just some quick updates, not many. The CLOMAR has been submitted to the Department of Public Safety for the WAVE project. Eric and I and the public works staff went on site to Riverside a couple weeks ago to look at the trees that need to be removed. Equinox had highlighted those for us. And Johnny's working on a quote for what that is gonna cost. There were several trees that were identified, so that should be interesting. We're still working on.
Are those going to be taken out? They going to go ahead and get rid of them right now? I mean, let a bid and, okay.
Still working on options for access across the river during construction of the wave. The railroad's being a little difficult, so surprise, surprise. We don't know what that's gonna look like, but we're still trying to figure it out. It may be that we don't access that side of the river and do all the work from one side and use the low flow bridge of the existing railroad bed for access to the other side. So that is an option. I don't know if that's what we'll do or not, but we're working on that. For the Greenway, we're reviewing an interlocal agreement that Buncombe County and Town of Woodfin have. It was adopted in 2017, so there's some updates that need to take place. So we've had conversations with the county about that. And we've started discussions on easement acquisition and what that's going to look like for the Greenway, still slated to start first quarter of the new year. And funding, not much new to report. We did receive word that we were not awarded the EEG grant that we'd gone for, but we're still waiting on announcement from the Water Resources grant that should happen in the spring. Otherwise, we're still looking good on the funding side.
Would you remind me what the EEG grant is and for how much?
Environmental enhancement grant. I don't remember what the background of that grant is.
It's administered by the Attorney General. It came from a settlement with hog farmers in eastern North Carolina during flooding and the lagoons overflowing. And so those were awarded across the state. There were probably 12 that were awarded. None of them were in the size. The top one was maybe 300,000. We requested almost 500,000 for this project. There were a couple in western North Carolina, predominantly in central and eastern North Carolina. Does this affect our fully funded status? That was the gravy on top of what we've already accounted for.
Yeah.
As is the other one, which is 500,000.
Oh, okay.
And we did have a follow-up from that granting source, one of their specialists reached out to the town to gather more information, and so that application is still active and under consideration.
Oh, that's great.
That one was more of a fit for our project than the first one, truthfully.
Good.
Okay, and finally, for funding, if we were to decide, for example, that the National Fitness Campaign was desirable for Geneva Manning, you had made the comment once before that the funding people that you work with love to have, a fundraising focus, something that they could sell. Is that still?
That's my experience, and that's what I've understood. So that's not an assurance that they would.
No, I understand.
However, that's the type of project I think is, you can raise money off of a little more readily, as is pickleball,
Okay.
That's all for today.
Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you much.
Thank you.